Understanding Judaism and Zionism, thanks to Israel SHAHAK's book, Jewish History, Jewish Religion, Dispensations, following. 3. Milking on the Sabbath. This has been forbidden in post-Talmudic times through the process of increasing religious severity mentioned above. The ban could easily be kept in the diaspora, since Jews who had cows of their own were usually rich enough to have non-Jewish servants who could be ordered, using one of the subterfuge described below, to do the milking. The early Jewish colonists in Palestine employed Arabs for this and other purposes, but with the forcible imposition of the Zionist policy of exclusive Jewish labor, there was need for a dispensation. This was particularly important before the introduction of mechanized milking in the late 1950s. Here too, there was a difference between Zionist and non-Zionist rabbis. According to the former, the forbidden milking becomes permitted provided the milk is not white but dyed blue. This blue Saturday milk is then used exclusively for making cheese, and the dye is washed off into the whey. Non-Zionist rabbis have devised a much subtler scheme, which I personally witnessed operating in a religious kibbutz in 1952. They discovered an old provision which allows the udders of a cow to be emptied on the Sabbath purely for relieving the suffering caused to the animal by bloated udders, and on the strict condition that the milk runs to waste on the ground. Now, this is what is actually done. On Saturday morning, a pious kibbutznik goes to the cow shed and places pails under the cows. There is no ban on such work in the whole of the Talmudic literature. He then goes to the synagogue to pray. Then comes his colleague, whose honest intention is to relieve the animal's pain and let their milk run to the floor. But if by chance a pail happens to be standing there, is he under any obligation to remove it? Of course not. He simply ignores the pails, fulfills his mission of mercy, and goes to the synagogue. Finally, a third pious colleague goes into the cow shed and discovers, to his great surprise, the pails full of milk. So he puts them in cold storage and follows his comrades to the synagogue. Now all is well, and there is no need to waste money on blue dye. 4. Mixed crops. Similar dispensations were issued by Zionist rabbis in respect of the ban, based on Leviticus chapter 19, verse 19, against sowing two different species of crop in the same field. Modern agronomy has, however, shown that in some cases, especially in growing fodder, mixed sowing is the most profitable. The rabbis invented a dispensation according to which one man sows the field lengthwise with one kind of seed, and later that day his comrade, who does not know about the former, sows another kind of seed crosswise. However, this method was felt to be too wasteful of labor, and a better one was devised. One man makes a heap of one kind of seed in a public place and carefully covers it with a sack or piece of board. The second kind of seed is then put on top of the cover. Later, another man comes and exclaims in front of witnesses, "I need this sack or board," and removes it, so that the seeds mix naturally. Finally, a third man comes along and is told, "Take this and sow the field," which he proceeds to do. Note: in the winter of 1945-46, I, myself, then a boy under 13, participated in such proceedings. The man in charge of agricultural work in the religious agricultural school I was then attending was a particularly pious Jew and thought it would be safe if the crucial act, that of removing the board, should be performed by an orphan under 13 years old, incapable of being or making anyone else guilty of a sin. A boy under that age can't be guilty of a sin. His father, if he has one, is considered responsible. Everything was carefully explained to me beforehand, including the duty to say, "I need this board," when in fact it was not needed. End of note. Leavened substances. 5. Leavened substances must not be eaten or even kept in the possession of a Jew during the 7 or outside Palestine 8 days of Passover. The concept of leavened substances was continually broadened, and the aversion to so much as seeing them during the festival approached hysteria. They include all kinds of flour and even unground grain. In the original Talmudic society, this was bearable because bread, leavened or not, was usually baked once a week. A peasant family would use the last of the previous year's grain to bake unleavened bread for the festival, which ushers in the new harvest season. However, in the conditions of post-Talmudic European Jewry, the observance was very hard on a middle-class Jewish family, and even more so on a corn merchant. A dispensation was therefore devised by which all those substances are sold in a fictitious sale to a Gentile before the festival and bought back automatically after it. The one thing that must be done is to lock up the taboo substances for the duration of the festival. In Israel, this fictitious sale has been made more efficient. Religious Jews sell their leavened substances to their local rabbis, who in turn sell them to the chief rabbis. The latter sell them to a Gentile, and by a special dispensation, this sale is presumed to include also the leavened substances of non-practicing Jews.